the Niners' biggest shortcoming in this game was just not landing that knockout punch. They never landed that knockout punch. And then you give the sliver of opportunity with that fumble in the red zone, and boom, Mahomes cashes in. Now you've given him what he needs to get a touchdown. And you give him 2 minutes to work with in regulation, and boom, he gets the points that he needs. You miss the extra point, right? And then that leaves the door open for him. He doesn't need a touchdown now. Overtime, you only get 3. Like, that's the thing. There's not really much to criticize about this Niners performance. And I do want to say specifically about Brock Purdy. I know that you said that maybe he didn't play make at the level that a Mahomes did. He was good in this game, man. His greatest sin in this game, like many before him, was just not being Patrick Mahomes. Like, I thought this was clearly the best game that Purdy played in this postseason. He did not have the killer mistake. It looked for a moment like maybe he did on that 3rd and 13 in overtime, but then it turns out there was a hole downfield, and then he led a big nuts drive, dude. He led a big nuts drive, getting that ball out to Christian McCaffrey on 3rd and 2 when he was under a bunch of pressure. Of course, CMC makes the special play, but that was impressive. Really nice throw on the run to Juszczyk. Like, it didn't feel to me like there were many moments at all in this game where I looked out and I thought, Brock Purdy doesn't belong on this field. I thought that he played a good game. Now, I did think there were some things where it's like, okay, yeah, he's not on that elite level. I thought that Spags was able to dial up some blitz that really disrupted him. And you see that kind of, it's the game-saving play for the Chiefs. They're able to get that blitz on 3rd down. Juwan Jennings wins his route. It doesn't matter. Purdy just can't hold on to the ball long enough. There were a couple other big 3rd downs. And there was a stretch in the early second half where he was out of rhythm and he was throwing into traffic a lot and it got a little bit dicey. But he came out making really nice throws over the middle of the field, moving the ball easily in that first quarter. And in overtime, I mean, he mostly did all you could ask, dude. We talked about how if you're going to win the Super Bowl, no matter how good your team is, you're going to need your quarterback to make those couple special plays.
Yeah.
And Brock was really close to doing that, man. And maybe if it wasn't Patrick Mahomes on the opposite side of the field, it would have been enough. But a field goal just wasn't enough.
It wasn't. And the only reason I say that is I do think Brock played a really good game against a great defense. I mean, again, considering the circumstances for Brock Purdy coming into this football game, I'm assuming you guys saw some of this on the broadcast, but lowest drafted player ever to start at quarterback in a Super Bowl. Obviously, we've had undrafted quarterbacks a la Kurt Warner, but he is the lowest drafted QB ever to start in a Super Bowl, Mr. Irrelevant. He's the 3rd youngest quarterback to ever start in a Super Bowl. Dan Marino, Ben Roethlisberger. And considering the play of those two guys, Marino isn't able to complete the game. Big Ben does not play a great game. This is the best performance by a young quarterback, in my opinion, on the big stage. Like, this is Brock does belong, and Brock is a good quarterback, and Brock played a good game. And all I'm saying is that there are just these few plays that make the difference. One play, I believe it's a corner throw to Ayuk, where there's a wide open receiver cutting across the middle. And I'm sitting there going, just take the check down, Brock. Like, I want to give Brock a lot of credit because I have been a guy who is, I've gone against the grain on Brock. He's a very polarizing player. You either think he's the GOAT, he's the best quarterback in the league, or you think Brock Purdy's dog water. I think Brock is a very good quarterback, and I called him average, and I thought he was overwhelmed. There are things that I think Brock does really well on the football field, but there were just marginal errors where he let me down, where I think he tried to do too much on a certain play. But that really is the difference. Chris Jones bears down on him on a play on a crucial 3rd down. They get a defensive back blitz in his face and throws off the rhythm, and that's the difference. It's kind of the same thing with the defense, Carson. I thought this 49ers defense played an immaculate game. The pressure they were able to exert on Patrick Mahomes throughout this game. And if Dre Greenlaw, who doesn't injure himself in that's one of the strangest injuries I've ever seen, man, to blow your Achilles out running onto the field. And you can tell they're just fired up. The team is just ready to go, man. They're excited to get on the field. Maybe that makes the marginal difference in this game. You got Fred Warner and the boys flying around the field making plays. And to me, Carson, the difference in this game for the Niners defense, because they did everything right. Pressure. They got the turnover. Like all the boxes that you check to beat Mahomes. In the red zone, how they stopped him. I thought the biggest difference wasn't even the play of the players. I don't want to pick on him because I thought he came up with a great game plan. But Steve Wilkes, to me, is the guy that I point the finger at. And the only reason I do that is because consistently, all game long, they are getting pressure with 3 and 4 guys. And in these big moments, these 3rd down scenarios, Wilkes says, we're going to bring the house. We're going to bring the pressure with 5 to 7 guys. To me, it's like, no, that's the exact wrong play call in this scenario. Mahomes is one of the best quarterbacks He sees six or
Yeah.
seven guys, and he goes, Troy Aikman was saying this on, I think, Russillo's pod, but he was like, the difference between good and great quarterbacks is they know the situation. They know what plays they need to make. And in those scenarios, when you see 6 or 7 guys bearing down on you, you know, oh, there's a guy open, and I got to get rid of the ball. And in those scenarios, Mahomes was surgical. When he picked up the blitz, it was over. And I thought that was the difference, that Steve Wilks was a little too gung-ho. I know that you want to make a play. I know that you want to get that big hit and seal the deal. I thought he was a little too gung-ho in those 3rd down, 4th down situations, bringing the house, when he should have dropped a few more guys in coverage and tried to blanket the field.
The one that stands out is the 3rd down in overtime where Mahomes finds Rashee Rice, and you could see the blitz was coming the whole way. I thought in the first half, actually, they were able to get a lot of pressure with 4, but it really does come down to those little situational things. And I will say, you talk about that quote from Aikman, the ability to diagnose and know exactly what you need in that situation. Brock played a really good game, and he made a couple of those awesome plays outside of structure, but that is true. Like, I thought that Mahomes held up much better against the blitz. I thought that there were a couple spots where Purdy was sped up and he wasn't able to succeed in those situations. I do think, though, what you clearly have to say after this game is that whenever you watch the Niners in a big game with Jimmy G, it felt like definitively you are not going to be able to overcome this. Like, he is going to do those 1 or 2 things that just cost you, if it's a back-breaking mistake or if it's just the fact that he can't go above and beyond, that he can't extend a play with his legs, that he doesn't have that sort of improvisational instinct as a thrower to make a big clutch play. And it didn't feel that way in this game with Brock Purdy. So I think that for the Niners is a win. That even though there were up and downs of this postseason run, he made big plays when you needed him against the Packers. He made a whole lot of big plays when you needed them against the Lions. And in this game, I thought that he stepped up and mostly delivered against an awesome defense. So yeah, I think it's still hard to win a Super Bowl with a Brock Purdy level guy at quarterback. And I think that you see that because you're right. The Niners were the more talented team, and they dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball for a lot of this game, and they had the more overwhelming talent, and you still didn't win. A lot of that is just Patrick Mahomes is inevitable. He's the best football player ever. But if you have I don't even know if we can say a tier 1 guy, because maybe tier 1 is just Mahomes, but we'll say a tier 2 guy, then maybe you can still win that game. But Brock has certainly separated himself from the Tua Tagovailoas of the world, right? He's just able to do more with his creativity, with his athleticism, and frankly with his balls, because he doesn't fear the moment. And I thought that he hung in the pocket. I thought that he delivered some throws from some condensed pockets in this game, and he put them in a position to win at the end of the day. But the Grim Reaper came through.
The Grim Reaper always does come through.
Always does.
Brock has a level of poise that has just astounded me through these first 2 years, man. He never really looks flustered or... I mean, the one game is the Baltimore game, and that's going to happen to anybody. It's the Keanu Reeves replacements quote. It's quicksand. You get those first turnovers, and you keep trying to dig and claw harder and harder, and that hole keeps pulling you down further and further. Brock, for the most part, doesn't blink, and I love that about him. Like, he never looks overwhelmed. He is a dog. And you can win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. Like, I do believe that. If it wasn't Mahomes, like you said, man, Carson, you can take any other quarterback on the planet, and this probably doesn't happen. I want to give a lot of credit to Brock. 33 total TDs in the regular season. That was the 5th most in the NFL. He led the NFL in QBR. 14-4 in the regular season this year. He was 7-0 as a starter in games he started and finished his rookie season. He's 21-4 in regular season games as a starter. Led the number 1 offense out in terms of yards per game. Like, he delivers balls on time accurately. He can operate and move decisively in the pocket. And I did think we saw his play extension. Like, he is a legitimately good playmaker when stuff breaks down. And he protects the football relatively well. Like, I love the level of control that Brock and how he sees the field. Romo said this a million times on the broadcast, and I'm not the biggest fan of Tony Romo, but I do agree. Brock's situational awareness and field awareness, I'll reference the play that you referenced earlier, the McCaffrey dump-off in the backfield. That's a split-second throw that you just have to know, my guy's there, I need to get this ball out right now, and he did it. And he's really good at that, but that is the difference between a Tier 2 guy and the best quarterback that I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes, man. Mahomes executed in those big spots, and Brock didn't. And that's not a knock on him. Like, Carson, this is Again, this is one of the best games that I've ever seen a team put together against Patrick Mahomes, and it just didn't freaking matter.